Hey there, welcome to part 1 of the tutorial series on creating a turn-based strategy game. So today I'll be going over how to set up the project, and we'll be creating classes for our units, and by the end of the video we'll be able to deploy our units from both sides of the screen. So first thing I like to do is click in here, and I want to create a settings file. Okay. And this is where I'll be defining all of the static variables that I will be using throughout the project, so I don't have to define them multiple times. So start by defining the base directory and then the resource directory here, where we have our images, our sound effects. And then we won't use this one for this part, but eventually we're going to want to save our game. So let's go ahead and create that for now. And then, yeah, just a version name. Alright, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's create our main game file. Now usually I would name this main.py, but just to make room later for, let's say, the menu and maybe the campaign map and all that stuff, I'm just gonna name this battle. Okay. So let's import our variables from settings. I will have another file called sprites where we define all of our sprites. So do that. Okay, we'll come back to edit this later, but for now let's go ahead and set up all the basics of our game. So typical init here. I'm going to define a game width and game height, and I will use these variables that I declared already. And here I'm going to add this guy here, which will just make sure that we consistently pop up the screen at 50-50. Alright, then we will create our screen here. Caption. Okay, I need to come here. I will do this anyway. Import Pygame as PG. Since I'm already importing some sprites, I don't have to do it in this file. Let's have a clock. And let's define these playing running variables. FPS. I'm going to go ahead and knit these. I won't use them for this part, but later on when we add some text and when we add music or sound effects, we'll use that. Now for the battle, one thing we'll need to define is, for example, the player country and the enemy country. Okay, so for this project, I'm going to use Shu and Wei from Three Kingdoms. You can name them whatever you want, but if you look at the resources, I did name the files with the country name attached to the end. And that's because these units, they are colored differently based on the country. So just be aware of that if you do decide to use different names. Alright, so let's define some sprite groups so we can group things together later. Let's have one for the players units and then one for the enemies units as well. Alright. In the beginning, let's go ahead and create a background for our battle scene. So what I'll do is, actually before I do that, let me come over to the sprites. So I want to define a class for static sprites. And what I mean by static sprites is anything like the background or some sort of like labels or counter, things like that, that will not really change. So this is going to be a PG sprite. We'll define X and Y where we put this sprite as well as the file name from which to load. And we'll do this. We'll load the file. Do convert alpha. And here we're just going to set this, whatever coordinates we pass it, we're going to just make it the top left. Okay. Alright, so now that we have this, we can come back here and just add our background. And we will add this at 0, 0. And the file name, it's in here. I think I had 4 different ones. Yeah, so let's just use the sand one, which is the standard. The background sand.png. Alright, and then we'll add this background sprite to our sprite group, all sprites. Okay, so now I'm going to call run. So in here is going to be our main game loop. So check if we are playing, and if we are, update the clock. All of these methods. Alright, we'll come back to events later, but for now, in the update, we're simply just going to update all of our sprites in our all sprites group. And then under draw, I'm going to say if we are playing, then full screen black, draw all my sprites on the screen. Right, and then we'll do a display flip. Alright, so if I run this right now, what I should get is I should be able to see just the background for the battlegrounds. Oh yeah, that's because I have not changed this. Okay, so let's change that to the resources directory so it actually knows where to pull it from. Alright, so there we have the sandy battleground as our background. Cool. Now, that's the basic setup. And now we're going to go into creating the classes for our units. So, the class here is going to be also a PG sprite. Alright, so several things we want to pass into this class here. First, we want to pass in our game, which is essentially our battle. Now, this is just so we can reference variables that are part of this battle class. Okay, so we might not use it for this part, but we'll definitely need it later on. So once again, the X, Y is where we're going to create the sprite. Now, when dealing with units, we need to consider several things. So first, unit class, right? So that might be like ranged melee or cavalry units. Now, unit type is more like the actual unit, like swordsman, spearman, archer. Of course, we want to give it the country. So for side is which side of the screen it comes out from. So for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to say left side is player side, and the right side is going to be enemy side. So slot is going to be the vertical slot where the unit is deployed. We won't get to it this part, but let's go ahead and put it there because we'll use it later. So walk frames is going to be how many walking frames there are, and attack frames is how many frames there are in the attacking animation. We'll just give it very basic attributes for now, which is health, attack, defense, and then the walking acceleration, or you can call it walking speed if you want. Okay. Determine how quickly the unit walks across the screen. Alright, so some other things we want to consider here is we want to be able to track when we last updated the animation and what the last or current animation frame is. Alright, and then we'll call this method load animations, which we'll define shortly. Actually, let's define it right now. That's fine. Alright, so what we'll be doing here is, well, whenever we generate one of our units, we'll load the animations as well. So for walking animations, we will do a list. Okay, so this is going to be, I named all my files this way, so it's very dynamic. Right, it's walking followed by the frame number and then the country. Okay, so if I do this and I format, so first is the unit type, which is kind of like the unit name, and then we give it I and self.unit country. So what I is going to be is for I. Now remember we had defined like the walking animation length previously, so that's what this is for. Defining range, we'll go to 1, from 1 to self.walking animation length plus 1. Okay, and let's go ahead and copy this part, and we'll do the same thing for the attacking. Spell attacking. Alright, and attacking here as well. Alright. Cool. Alright, now we'll create an update method. In here, we're just going to say self.animate. And what that's going to be is so here we'll need to define a threshold for how often we want our sprite to animate. So if the current tick minus the last time it was updated is greater than, for now let's just say 50 frames. Okay, if that's greater than 50, then we're going to update the animation with the next frame. So we'll say current frame equals current frame plus 1 modulo the length of self.walking animation. Okay. So what that's going to do is it's going to set the current frame to the next frame, right? But if it goes over the length of the walking animation, it's going to go reset to 0. And now we'll set the image to be the nth frame in the walking animations. Alright, so next we come back here. Now we do need to define what the initial image is, and that's just going to be the first frame in the walking animation. And of course we will set get direct and then set the position. Let's do center equals xy, which we passed here. Okay. Alright, so we've defined a basic class that can, for our unit, that can walk. Well, there's one caveat. We'll get to that later. But let's come back to the battle now. And what we want to do is we want a way for us to deploy a unit. So let's keep things simple for now and just go to the events method. and do a event.get. And I like to do it on key release rather than key press, but it's really up to you. So here's what we'll do. If the player presses A, then we're gonna call a function called deploy unit, and we'll define this. Let me see, where am I gonna put this? All right, let's just come down here and define what deploy unit actually is. Okay, so whenever we deploy a unit, there are, let's see, I think at least 3 things we want to keep in mind. First of all is what side is this unit on? Is it a player side or the enemy side? And then we're going to know what type of unit we're deploying. For now, I'm just going to set the slot equal to 1, but then later on we'll have to define what the vertical slot is. So if we are deploying on the player side, let's create an instance of our unit here. Okay, I need to do something else because I just created a general class for unit, but I did not create any specific unit. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we'll do that here. So this is just going to be a child class of the unit class that we defined up here. Let's call this, I think that the sprite that I put in the resources is elite sword infantry. So here we'll pass some basic parameters. So we have the game XY, we have the unit class, unit type, just basically copying most of what's up here. But so we'll be passing these variables in from the deploy unit, and then we'll pass in some unit-specific attributes in the remaining ones, like their stats, like the health, attack, defense. Okay, so what is available from the battle scene is we know, well, we have the battle scene itself, we have the X and Y coordinates, we have the unit class, the unit type, we know the country, right? We know which side, and we know the slot. And that's it. So for the rest of them, we'll define in here. And this is where you can really create this unit variety. So here we have walk frames. I believe this is 9 for the elite infantry, and attack frames should be 6. Alright, so now for the health you can do whatever you want, but for now I'm just going to do attack, defense, and then walking, acceleration. Let's just do 4. Okay. So whenever we call the deploy unit, we're now going to create an instance of the elite sword infantry. And the things we need to let it know are, once again, the battle scene itself. For now, since we're deploying from the left side, let's just deploy at x equals 50. The height should really be dependent on the slot, but we'll worry about that later. Right now we'll just deploy in the middle of the screen in terms of the height. Class type is melee. Unit type we already have from here. And then let's see what's next. It should be the player country. Okay, so it's the country, unit country, and then side and slot. So unit country is going to be, with respect to the battle scene itself, it's this player country that we defined up here. Okay, so it's going to be player country, and we have the, I think, side and slot. Yep, side and slot are both passed in here. Side and slot. Okay, so now that we've created an instance of this sword infantry here, we can add it to, let's add it to player unit sprites because we're deploying from the left. And then we will also add it to all sprites. So that's deploy unit. Right now it's giving a warning because I don't have a condition for the right, but okay, let's go ahead and do it. So all I have to do here is really just change the thing for the enemy side. So for the enemy side, it'll be deployed from the width of the screen minus 50. Everything else here is same, except player country is going to be actually the enemy country. And yeah, that's really it. Out here we need to make sure we add it to the enemy's sprite group. Cool. So here we're saying deploy unit. We need to pass it these parameters. So this is going to be left, elite sword infantry, and we will set this to, it's already going to be 1 by default. So we'll do that. Now, that's if we press A. So if we press, let's say we press D, right? I want to now deploy it from the other side, the enemy side. So let's try it out. We have our battle background. I'm going to press A, and there he is. And I will press D, and okay, so it's popping up from the right position. So immediately we see two issues. One is they're not actually moving. They're, the animation is there, but they're not actually moving across the screen. And also when we deploy from this side, he's going the wrong way. He's attacking his own people. Okay, so first let's fix the facing the wrong way issue. So to do that, we just have to come back to load animations here. And all we have to do is check that if this unit is deployed from the right side, then we just have to do a transformation, a flip on the y-axis for all of these frames here. So do flying range, walking animations. We'll say frame equals self.walking animations I, and we're gonna replace iframe with a transformed. Okay, we do want to do a horizontal flip here, and yeah, we can copy this and do the same for the attacking animations, which we won't cover until probably next part. Alright, so let's test that out first. Okay, make sure that they're facing the right direction. A and D, yep, so now they're going towards each other, or at least facing each other. Okay, so now we have to get them to walk, and that's where we come in here to the update. So first, if they're deployed from the left side, let's just move their rect. So from the left side, they're going towards the right, so we'll do plus, stop the walking acceleration. And then, if they're coming from the right, we'll just minus the walking acceleration. Okay. So let's try that. A and D. Yep, they're walking towards each other. Fantastic. So one thing that we also need to do is, right now you can't really tell, but when these guys walk off the screen, they're actually continue walking. So we need to kill them. Okay, so we need to kill the sprites if they walk off the screen. So here, let's say if he walks 50 pixels off the screen, then we'll do not kill, and let's just print a message so we can test that it worked. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Right, so this unit itself, it doesn't have an attribute game width, so that's where we refer to the battle scene itself. And the battle scene has a game with. Alright, so for the other side, if they're walking towards the left, then if they're below -50, we'll kill them. Okay, so let's do this. Alright, so I'm going to move over here a little bit so you can kind of see the message pop up. Keep going, keep going. Alright, went off screen, went off screen. Alright, perfect. So yeah, that's what we have for this part. In the next part, I want to show you guys, how to actually make these guys stop and fight each other when they come, within a certain range. So right now they're just walking through each other, not really fighting as they should be. Okay. All right. If you have any questions, suggestions, as first time I'm doing this type of tutorial, so let me know how I can help you, and we'll see you next time.